Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Warrior Report here on HBC TV 25. I'm Justin Barrientos. Thank you for joining us. We are brought to you by Russell & Associates, coming to you from the 111 Riverfront Building, the Latch Development Center in downtown Winona. Kind of a special program here today as we preview the spring football game that's coming up on Saturday at Maxwell Field at Ultra Federal Credit Union Stadium. Head coach Brian Bergstrom is here to join us. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're taping on Monday so that everybody knows. The snow happened over the weekend. What has that done to any plans? I imagine spring game is still on. I know the weather forecast is also looking pretty bad at this point for later on in the week, but still 100% chance of football?
Oh yeah, it's football's a game that you play in all sorts of weather. Sometimes you're worried about heat index, other times you're worried about wind chill, and other times you're worried about lightning. And but yeah, our facilities has done an amazing job all winter of clearing the field. So we got a plan. We got practice tomorrow and Thursday, and we'll make sure the field is clear. And that's all we need is a space to play.
All right, let's get the details out first before we get into anything else, and then we'll kind of recap that towards the end. But what is the event that is happening on Saturday?
So Saturday is our spring football game, and in spring football you can have 15 practices, really over a month. So we go Tuesday, Thursday in the afternoons, and then we go Saturday mornings. Really for about 5 weeks, and this is our last practice, so to speak. And for us, it is practice. We call it a spring game, and there will be certainly a lot of offense, defense, scrimmaging, and it's football. And there's a scoring system for when the offense scores, and when the defense stops them, they're able to earn points. So that itself starts at 2 o'clock on Saturday. But even before that, at noon is our game day experience tailgate, like a normal fall game day, and it's free admission to that and to the game. So just looking forward to as many people coming out as possible.
All right, very good. Let's go back to last year, your first year as head coach here of the Warriors. You're able to make the playoffs and get a playoff game. I don't really want to talk about that, but I want to talk about the season overall. Now that you've had a little bit of time to look back at it, how do you feel you did? How do you feel the team did last season as your first year as head coach?
I think our guys did a great job of adjusting, and Coach Sawyer did an amazing job over 25 years. So it's a big transition when they have new coaches, because it wasn't just me. So a huge part of it is football, so there were some changes schematically in learning and terminology, but there's a change in culture and a change in expectations and a change of the way we did things and do things now. Just like we'll continue to change and adapt from year to year as we go, but what we were most impressed with as a staff is how coachable the guys were to change and something new and really grabbing on to the culture. And what happened is every day we were able to focus on getting better, because we knew guys were bought in, and what that allowed us to do is win more football games. And that's a byproduct of our guys' hard work. And players make plays and players win games, and it's our job as coaches to get them ready and then let them play. So just really excited about the growth we made in year one. But not satisfied. Now it's time to be in year two and make year two mistakes and year two growth, and the bar is higher now.
So, I mean, you've been through this a couple of times at different coaching spots around. Are you surprised at how, from the outside, it looks like it was a pretty seamless transition between Coach Sawyer and your staff? Although, there were still a couple of Coach Sawyer's staff that were on your staff. But are you surprised at kind of how seamless that transition went for you?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I know Coach Sawyer, and I knew him enough at the time, and I knew myself that if it was going to work for any two people, it could work for us. And I think it did, because we both approached it with humble attitudes. And Coach Sawyer was appreciative of the time that he had and excited for the next step of the program. And I was appreciative of all the work that had been done, even before Coach Sawyer, and ready to humbly take charge and try to be the best leader I could be for the program. And so in that way I'm not, but in some ways I am too, because it's not easy. It's not easy. And there's so many things that go into it, so you're just bound to run into roadblocks. And we still had some. but really couldn't have asked for a better transition and better people around us.
All right, so going off of that, now that you have your first as a head coach out of the way, what does season 2 look like for you here in the off season preparing for the fall, and what's your assessment of your first year as a head coach?
Mm-hmm. So in the off season, as soon as we got done in the playoffs last year, really we flipped the page, and not that you don't look back, and not that there's not moments in time like the banquet or we're gonna get conference championship rings soon, and those are cool moments to look back on. And it's not that you don't look back, but you start to move ahead, because we know that's how we're wired and that's how we're gonna take the next step. So kind of a quick overview of what's been going on since then is, first off, our players got some time off, and that right after the season through Christmas, they would still work out, but on their own, and their body would get the break that it needed, and their mind and their heart and everything needed a break. Coaches kind of go full speed ahead into recruiting, and we got busy into the final phases of recruiting the 2023 class. And then when the guys got back after Christmas, they started full workouts with our strength and conditioning staff and Coach Hodges, and coaches kept recruiting, and then we got to February and we signed that class in recruiting. And then we as coaches became more involved in the workouts that our guys were having with Coach Hodges, and it became more football specific, and then you start to prep for spring football, and you start to really study the film from last season, because now we actually have time because we're not recruiting as much. And then we get to transition into spring football. So in that February, March time, we're with our guys in the weight room and in meeting rooms and doing drills with them. And then about 4 weeks ago, we started spring football, where we're actually on the field with them and practicing. And then when we get done with spring football, then they go into another break during May and then the summer. So it just kind of keeps going. And before you know it, it'll be the fall. But just super proud of the work that our guys have done, and the work that our staff has done. Our staff works tirelessly to forming great relationships and being great mentors to our guys, being elite teachers of the game and teachers of life, but then also experts in football. They're pretty good football coaches too. And that's what's fun about being a football coach, is that you're so much more than the game on 11 Saturdays that people see. We see our guys most days of the year, which is crazy to think. So we have a big platform and a big influence, one we don't take lightly. So it's been a lot of growth since that cold day in Bemidji.
I would talk too about what you want your team to do around the university, because we've seen some of your players at basketball games, and kind of having the college experience, as it were, but also being fans of everybody else. And Corey King ended up being an assistant women's basketball coach this season. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of urge your players on to kind of be a part of the university and not just a part of the football team.
You bet. Football's part of what our guys do. It's not their identity. Football's what they do, not who they are. And part of going to college and being a student athlete is being a college student and being a fan and being friends and growing up. And we want football to be a big part of that and to really have a mark on them, but not the only piece. And so we take a lot of pride in making sure we're efficient with their time. So they have time, certainly for their studies, so they can be the best that they can be in the classroom, but then also time to enjoy being a college student and going to other games and being with their friends, even friends outside of football, and also being involved in the community and community service. And so we encourage our guys in all seasons, like now, maybe not so much today, but when we actually get to play baseball and softball around here, be at those games. You'd want them at your games, and they are. Be at the basketball games, go to the gymnastics meets, and we encourage them to broaden their horizons outside of just football.
All right, and then you were talking about community and community service work. You have a couple of things with that coming up as well, correct?
Yeah, this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, our heart, is the fact that it's not about us. The world doesn't revolve around us. We're going to take a ton of pride in being the best that we can be, but in order for us to truly use our platform, is we have to look at people outside of ourselves and give something to somebody who we know will never be able to pay us back. And that could be things like reading in the elementary schools, playground volunteering at the elementary schools. We have a Be the Match, which is a drive, which is a national bone marrow registry that we're running a drive on campus this Wednesday. We were supposed to do our spring cleanup where we pick up litter tonight, but we're gonna wait till the snow melts. We're helping volunteer with yard work in 2 Sundays from now. We set up and tear down for all the gymnastics meet, and these are volunteer opportunities for our guys. And there's so many more that I haven't even mentioned. And it's just hopefully creating not a look at what we're doing. It's not for that. It's to try and change our guys' hearts on the inside, so that, especially when they leave here and while they're here, to look outside themselves and to look to better people, better other people's lives. And if we do that, we're winning. We're winning games. We're winning things that are more important than the games, because we're winning their heart.
All right. Do you ever hear any feedback from the community? Any thanks or anything that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, in many ways, we hear feedback, mostly positive. If it's community service, it's always positive.
Sure.
But most of the feedback I hear, unless it was, why didn't you call that on 4th down, or call this? It's very positive, because we have really, really good football players on our team, but they're even better young men. They're not perfect. None of us are. But they're truly striving to be their best, and they're coachable, and they love each other, and just mostly proud of who they are and are striving to be.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of the activities that the team does. I mean, we talked about what they can do, separate from football, but kind of bonding activities
Mm-hmm.
within the football team itself. What are some of the things that the team does in the off season that they can't get to during the regular season?
You bet. Some of the obvious ones are like they're working out early in the morning together 4 days a week, and that naturally is going to help people grow closer together. When you do something that they probably wouldn't choose to do on their own, wake up at the hour that they do and do it together and do hard things together, that ties people together. And some of that's natural from playing football, but kind of outside of that, we feel it's really important to have intentional conversation about things outside of the game. So, we had a meeting where we celebrated Black History Month, where we broke into discussion groups for a half hour, 45 minutes, and really dug deep and got to know each other more and talked about hard things. We're studying a book, Seasons of Life, this spring together. So that doesn't have anything to do with how good at football we are, but we're reading a book, and we're having book study twice a week on what we're reading. We're not reading it together, we're reading it on our own and coming together in small groups. But then also fun stuff, like getting together for a team movie. About a month ago now on a night, and got popcorn from the movie theater and watched it on campus. And probably one of the favorite team activities is that every spring is the dodgeball tournament, where they draft teams and dress up. Some of them dress up in costumes and have a good time playing dodgeball. So some of it's working hard together on the field, and a lot of it is doing stuff that isn't football. And the best stuff is when they're on their own, living together, doing life together. That draws them closer together.
Oh, I love that dodgeball. That's
yeah.
that sounds like such a fun activity, for a gym class. But
Right.
but to see college football players do that must be really something to see.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break here on the Warrior Report. We got plenty more to talk to, especially to talk about the spring game coming up ahead at the end of this week. But we'll take a break right now, and we'll be back with more of the Warrior Report right after this.
For over 60 years, Russell & Associates has been helping individual and business clients achieve what matters to them. Our trusted advisors have the expertise and experience to help with long-term plans for personal finance, business finance, or wealth management. Focus on what matters most. Call Russell & Associates certified public accountants and advisors today at 507-452-3100 or visit us online at russellcpafirm.com.
And welcome back to the Warrior Report here on HBC TV 25, brought to you by Russell & Associates, coming to you from the 111 Riverfront Building, the Latch Development Center in downtown Winona. Continue our conversation with head coach Brian Bergstrom from Warrior Football. And, one of the hallmarks of Coach Sawyer's tenure at Winona State was kind of keeping his coaching staff intact. I mean, there were several years where there were really no changes.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, you're kind of continuing that. You have moved some people around in different places, but talk about your coaching staff and what you have coming back for the fall.
Yeah, you bet. It was a priority to me to keep as many of our coaches intact as we could, because we have a great staff filled with great men first. And for the most part, we were able to do that. We hired one new coach. Coach Mitch Fair is our new defensive line coach. And he comes to us from Bowling Green, competes in the MAC, and before that he was at Yale. But also spent, a few years back, some time in our league at Southwest State. And he'll be coaching our defensive line. We did make some just staff adjustments in terms of roles. Offensively, Coach Frichte is now the associate head coach, and still the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks. And Coach Olson, Trevor Olson, is our run game coordinator now and coaching the offensive line. One change that we made is, I'll talk about in a second, I'm coaching more defense on defense and playing a more active role coaching. And Coach Curtin is coaching our wide receivers and is also our special teams coordinator. And Coach Curtin has been here just as long as Coach Sawyer and knows Winona as much as anybody. And just really proud of him for taking a leap of faith, and just in terms of stepping into a new role, new side of the ball. But what it allowed us to balance our staff a little bit more and have the same number of full-time coaches on each side of the ball, with me playing more of a role on defense now. And Coach Bailey still coaching our tight ends and fullbacks, and Coach Peckham still coaching our running backs. And then Coach Myrick, who was coaching receivers, pulled him over to the defensive side of the ball. And so myself and Coach Myrick are coaching the DBs, with me focusing more on safeties and Coach Myrick focusing more on corners. And then Coach Erickson, our defensive coordinator, moved from defensive line into linebackers. And so we shuffled the staff around more than we made changes, so to speak. So it's familiar faces, maybe a different spot, but super excited. I know it was the right thing to do.
All right. Obviously, you going back to defense is where you were when you played.
Yep.
So did you really miss that when you were head coach last year? And you kind of, I mean, there were a lot of things, obviously, that probably happened as a head coach that maybe you didn't expect or that you did expect. But then did you ever expect that you would miss being able to coach a position?
Yeah, I think I did miss it. And that's part of the reason. I think I will be a better head coach, kind of filling my bucket that way, so to speak, and getting some of my favorite part of coaching. I think I'll be a better coach overall as well. But I think for the first year, doing what I did and overseeing the whole program and not coaching a position and being in every meeting room equally was the right thing to do in my first year. And I think it was best for our kids, best for our staff, best for me. And that's how we make decisions, is what's best at the time. Now, going into year 2, we strongly believe that this is what's best. And it's with me taking a little bit more active role. And to be honest, I can handle more now as a head coach than I could last year. I'm 1 year better at being a head coach. And the next year be hopefully 1 year better, and on and on and on. But we think that this is the right thing moving forward, and excited about it. So,
do you feel like now this is your program, now that you're a year in, or is that even something that's even a concern to you?
I don't even think it's a concern. I feel like it's our program. Like when I say I'm talking like our staff, but I'm talking like my family, the coaches' families, our players, their families, the Winona community, HBC. I mean, I didn't sense it as it was Coach Sawyer's. He held a leadership position within the program, and so do I, and in that same seat. But Winona State football was here long before me, certainly, and it will be here long after me. And so I think I'm trying to be a good steward as a leader and taking care of the program and leave it in a better spot than when I took it. And just like Coach Sawyer did. It was in a better spot when he left than when he got it.
let's talk about spring practice now, because obviously one of the things that's changed about sports over the years is that each individual sport seems to be like a year-round sport now.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be something in between the time that the football team has off after the season is done to summertime to when they actually come back to play, and obviously spring is kind of the void in that.
Mm-hmm.
So these 15 practices that you have in the spring, what do you hope to get out of that, and what have you seen so far?
Mm-hmm. Well, spring football is my favorite time of year, which is kind of funny to say because of how fun the fall is. And the fall is awesome, and it is so much about the joy in watching our guys compete, getting to compete in games of what they worked so hard to do all year long. As a coach, I love the spring because we get to focus on getting better, and we are able to do it kind of in-house, so to speak. And you have the time to really refine things, where in the fall, you're still getting better, but you're spending a lot of time focusing on other people, the other team. And this allows us to focus on ourselves. And you're also able to do it at a different tempo, because you have a practice, then a day off, practice, then a day off. So they're better able to digest material and also go back and study it. So there's great joy as a coach in the spring. And I think our number one goal overall in everything we do is growth. So it's to get better. So the goal of spring ball is to be better in every single way. And that's the mental side of the game, the emotional side of the game, the tactical side of the game, the technique, the competitive spirit, like the responding to adversity, like every area that you'd want to be good in, we got to get better in that area in spring football. And we have goals offensively and defensively and special teams specifically. My goals as a head coach, number one, we need to have three main goals going into the spring ball, and I think we're well on our way to accomplishing them. One is to develop true grit, true toughness, true resilience, and put our guys in situations where it really is something that's uncomfortable, something that's hard, something that when in the fall we can pull back on these times and we aren't just, it's real easy to say the right thing, do the right thing when the seas are calm. When they're rocky and your ship's about to go down, what kind of competitor are you then? And that you're able to model your true grit, and it's developing that. It's developing a higher level of peer leadership and peer accountability. So we're going to go as far as our athletes will take us, and in order to do that, we got to have great peer leadership. And it can't be me, it can't be the coaches all the time that are doing the coaching, because we're not on the field. We're removed from the game, so to speak. So it's the ability to give feedback to my teammates and to take feedback from my teammates and do it in a good way and do it in a positive way, and be thankful that a teammate cares enough about me to call me out or to affirm me, just like my coaches. And we need to have the courage to say it and then the courage to take it. And then lastly, scheme and culture mastery. And mastery means you're just doing things like without even thinking. You're reacting. And that's when you know something so well that you're able to just play, just react, because you've trained yourself to do that. It just didn't come instinctually. You trained in the dark, so to speak, when people weren't watching you. It has become a habit now. And that's scheme, fundamentals, and then the culture of our program. We don't want our guys thinking about who we are, what we do, how we do it, why we do it. We want it so ingrained that they just react and play. It's then that we'll play our best on Saturdays. And that's what we're trying to do, is win as many games as we can and impact lives while we do it.
All right, let's talk about then, what happens here, because is there ever a sense that you have these 15 practices, you have the spring game, is there ever a sense that you are trying to cram too much into that brief time that you have, and then what happens after the spring is done?
Mm-hmm. Well, spring is just one stop along the way in the off season. So I think it's certainly more intense, and there's times where it's like, man, this is a lot. Mm-hmm. But we're really trying to spread it out throughout the whole year, and that's what those winter workouts and the winter meetings are so important for, because you're always building that foundation. And spring is important because it's as close to football as we get until the fall. So it's as game-like as we can get. So it does matter, but what our guys learned about 15 months ago or however long that we've been here is that everything matters. Their grades matter, being on time matters, the weight room matters, being a great teammate matters, the community service matters, being locked in the book club meeting matters, like it all matters. Spring ball holds a little bit more weight because it's more game-like. And the next step, like I mentioned, is they'll get some downtime now in May. They'll focus on their finals. They'll be able to go home once if they'd like. They'll start working if they'd like to do that. We won't have formal team strength and conditioning workouts till June. Then in June and July we have strength and conditioning workouts, and then in August we start fall camp, which is obviously the start to the season. So it'll be here before you know it. So we're excited for the ride.
All right, it's interesting that they're able to get that kind of time off and kind of time to recharge and that happens several times during the year. All right, we have about 4 minutes left in this segment, so let's actually talk about what's coming up on Saturday, the actual spring game itself. What is the structure for this? What are some of the things that happen, and what are some of the things that you and your staff and the players too, I guess, are going to look for, and what makes a successful spring game, even though it's not really a game, but game-like conditions? What makes a successful spring game?
Well, I think I'll start with that. The two things that come to mind. One is that we get one practice better. Like practice 15 has to be better than practice 14, and practice 13 needs to be better than 12, and so on. But the other thing is that we stay healthy. That makes us the spring game a success. And if we can do those two things, we'll consider it a win, and we'll count it as one of our 15. But it is more game-like. There's fans. It feels more like a game. There is more scrimmaging. And just so everyone understands, if we're fortunate enough to have you there, or watch the game streamed on online or HBC, is that it's offense against defense. And there's a scoring system where it's not two separate full teams with a whole offense and a whole defense. It's the offense trying to score points, and the defense is able to score points by stops and punts and turnovers. So there still is going to be a score on the scoreboard, but it's just a little bit different. And then the special teams will be more focused on the specialists, not the whole kickoff team running down the whole kickoff return and so forth. It's more the snappers, holders, kickers, returners being able to display what they've been working. And that's mostly for it's just not worth the risk of an injury on a special team in the spring game. So we practice those things. We just won't be doing it on Saturday.
All right, about a minute left in this segment. Again, the spring game is just part of the experience that will happen on Saturday. You mentioned the game day experience returns for this week. Do you have any insight on what's going on for the game day experience?
Yeah, so the game day experience, for those of the fans that don't know, is really a pregame tailgate on steroids, because it's big and it's amazing. I haven't seen anything like it, especially at the Division II level, with food trucks and music and games for kids and entertainment for adults and just a central area also though to gather and tailgate before the game. And it's right in the middle of where our guys will walk down, called the Warrior Walk, about an hour before the game in the fall. But about 1:15, our whole football team is going to walk down the street. And it's right, if you know where the stadium is, go under the tunnel, under the train, and it's right there on Johnson Street. And you can't miss it on campus. Starts at noon, free. The game's at 2, free. We'll see you there.
Yeah, and if you can't make it there or you can't stream it, it's on HBC TV 25, and we'll begin our coverage at 2 o'clock, which is when we'll kind of address everybody and get everything going. Well, Coach Bergstrom, thank you for joining us, and hopefully the weather clears up and we have a great day coming up on Saturday.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, thank you for watching the Warrior Report here on HBC TV 25. We'll see you next time.